Okay, Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Laura Harmon with Charlotte Planning, Design and Development Department and the UDO Project Manager, and we're really glad to see so many of you guys join us today. I want to just introduce the teammates that we have been working on the UDO and related items before we get started, and then we'll just jump right on in. I also want to acknowledge, I can't see everyone, but acknowledge that we do have some of our planning commissioners on the call today as well, and appreciate them coming. So let me go quickly to say we have Alan Goodwin, who is the Deputy Project Manager, Dave Pettin, who is the Entitlement Services Division Manager, Kevin May, who is a UDO team member, and Mariah Wozniak, who is also a UDO team member. And with that, I think we will just jump on in.
Right.
So we're here today to provide some information and hear feedback if you have any on a UDO text amendment, Petition 2023-130. And so we will present information on the proposed text amendment. You can then use the Zoom chat feature to enter questions or comments. Hopefully, after all this time, we will you will have been using Zoom and know how to do that. Staff will respond to questions either during the session, by chat, or at the end of the presentation verbally. So this presentation will focus on the contents of Text Amendment 2023-130 and give you a little bit of background information on where we've been with text amendments, where we're going. We're not going to be talking about other elements of the UDO. There will be opportunities, I'm sure, in the future to talk about some of those, but we're focusing on the contents of this text amendment. We will receive through this meeting and consider feedback from the session attendees. And if you do have questions or comments on other elements of the UDO, they can be addressed to staff by email at charlotteudo@charlottenc.gov. And we'll just pause here for a minute in case anyone wants to take a picture of that or write down that email address. Okay, Alan, I guess we're ready for the next slide. So just again, to set the foundation, the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO, is Charlotte's primary implementation tool for the adopted policies in the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan, particularly with respect to regulations, the primary regulatory tool. It was adopted by City Council on August 22nd of last year, but just became effective on June 1st of this year. So we had a waiting period in there before it became effective. It is intended to be a living document, meaning that we will adjust it and revise it through text amendments, and that's the process. A text amendment is the process of changing the UDO and going to council for adoption on or approval on those changes, ideally approval. But anyway, we will be making changes to maintain its relevancy, to clarify the intent, to address new concepts, uses, or best practices. And also, as we find things that are not working very well, it is very common with anything as big as the UDO, and we're at a little over 600 pages, to need to go in and make adjustments. relatively soon after adopting, and to make multiple adjustments, frankly, as we've talked to other communities that are ahead of us in this. And so we are doing that as needed. So if we go to the next slide, we'll show you, these are the text amendments that have gone through council to date. We had a land clearing and inert debris landfill text amendment that was approved by council. We did take a text amendment earlier in the year for adjustments to CG and CR zoning and centers place types that was denied, largely because it was dealing with drive-throughs and council was not comfortable with the drive-through component of that text amendment. There was also a multifamily component that I'll talk about in a minute. We've already done one cleanup text amendment for the minor changes for the UDO, and this was approved prior to the effective date. And so these first 3 text amendments all went to council prior to the effective date of June 1st. And since the effective date, we have taken to council and had approved a text amendment to deal with existing single family and duplexes that have ended up in CG and OFC, which is general commercial and office flex campus zoning, where these were existing homes that were allowed in their previous zoning district, but when they moved to the new zoning district, they were not in allowed use, and we wanted to acknowledge them and allow them as a use. And then just on Monday, we had council approve a text amendment that was part of that earlier 2023-57 text amendment that was denied, but this was the multifamily use component to allow multifamily uses in the CG, which is general commercial, and CR, regional commercial zoning districts, when you're also in a centers place type. And I know that may sound like a lot of garble, but try to explain a little bit. We have centers place types, and that's on our policy map. And in those areas, we want to see multifamily use, and that just happened not to be allowed in these districts. Many of these districts are in centers place type, so we wanted to go ahead and accommodate that, and council did approve that. So now for the text amendment that we want to present to you today. This is our second cleanup, what we call a cleanup text amendment. It is what we call a technical text amendment. We filed it in late September. It addresses multiple items identified by the community and staff. We're obviously having the two community engagement sessions today. One is the noon session that you all have joined, and then we also have one at 6 p.m. if anyone wants to rejoin, or they know of someone that they might want to suggest come to that session as well. We are currently scheduled for a public hearing on Monday, November the 20th, and then a council decision on Monday, December 18th. So that is our current schedule. Of course, that could always change, but that's where we are today at this meeting. So we're going to move through what is in the text amendment. This is a lot of detailed technical information. I'm hoping that folks have had a chance to look at the text amendment that we have online. Certainly, as you have questions about what I'm saying, if you can put them in chat or feedback on the proposed changes, and I'll do my best to make this relatively easily understood. So again, we're clarifying and making minor adjustments. The first thing that we've identified is something that is basically adding a little bit more of a roadmap into the UDO So we're just stating, and when you go into the zoning district articles, that prescribed conditions do apply, and that you go to a different article, Article 15, which is where the uses are, to learn what the prescribed conditions are. Occasionally we're finding that people are not realizing that for some uses and some zoning districts, there may be additional standards and conditions, and we are sending them to that location. We are also adding a time frame for temporary uses that are not listed in the use matrix. If you look in the use section, which is Article 15, you will see a number of temporary uses, but our zoning administrator let us know that occasionally there may be a process where we end up with a temporary use that is not listed in the use matrix with a specific time frame for that temporary use. And so we've set a time frame for those temporary uses that are not listed in the use matrix that the zoning administrator may allow, and that is for 90 consecutive days. We also in the UDO have some affordable housing bonuses, and we found that we had not in all cases added the affordability period, the time frame that a property owner has to maintain the affordability that they've agreed to. And so we have added that to have a 30-year affordability period for affordable housing units that have been committed to through the development bonus, typically the height bonus, and a 15-year affordability period for the bonus affordable unit in a quadruplex in our neighborhood 1 zoning district. So there is an allowance to be able to build a quadruplex if you also include an affordable unit in certain conditions. And so this will clarify that that unit has to be affordable for 15 years. We've also added some language about where accessory structure, some additional language about where accessory structure should be placed to clarify that they have to be on the same parcel as the principal structure they support. This really came out as some concern from folks in code. Sometimes people are putting accessory structures in the street, so they're not usually on the same parcel as the principal structure. And we also said that you cannot block sidewalks with accessory structure. So that could be something like a pod or something like that, so that is placed on a site temporarily or even permanently. But in the case where there have been issues, they're usually temporary structures. So we need to clarify where they need to go. We've also added a new use, which is a commercial fitness center. This differentiates places like a Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym, which would be a commercial fitness center, from a private recreation club, like a neighborhood swim or tennis club. We didn't have that differentiation, we found, as we were using the ordinance, and really needed to clarify that. Particularly because the commercial or the private recreation center is allowed in our neighborhood 1, which are residential areas. And we realized Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym would not be appropriate in the middle of a neighborhood, but belongs more in a commercial area. And also to help clarify this issue, we removed health club from personal services and are letting those things be covered by commercial fitness center or private recreation club. We also relocated some site layout conditions from the neighborhood 1F district into the prescribed conditions and use regulations. People were not finding these because they seem to be more hidden in the neighborhood 1F district. So we thought, let's put them, they really are functioning as prescribed conditions with prescribed conditions, so they would be more easily found. Another item that came from code enforcement with housing and neighborhood services related to some language which was in the previous zoning ordinance concerning vehicles, parking, and storage. And we have added standards for the storage of unlicensed vehicle and the display for sale or trade of licensed and unlicensed vehicles in the neighborhood 1, neighborhood 2, and manufactured home park zoning districts, so that there would be clarity on what you can and cannot do, and that there are limitations in those districts. We have also proposed some adjustments to our standards for driveways and parking areas for duplex, triplex, and quadruplex, clarifying that driveway and parking pad limitations apply between the entire street facing facade and the front lot line. We do have limitations that say that you can have a limited amount of parking and driveway for those uses in that area, and that it is the entire front of the building. We've done that because we really are trying to maintain the character of our established neighborhoods, where you are seeing typically in neighborhoods mostly front lawns and then some driveway. We know in some cases single family may have more pavement than that, but in most cases that's what we're seeing, and we want to make sure that with these new residential uses, duplexes and triplexes, that they are really having the same character of the single family homes in our neighborhoods. Additional adjustments. I know this is a lot of detail, so thank you for hanging in there. We found that perhaps our parking structure, parking deck design options were a little bit limiting, were becoming very costly, and were not really giving us, as a community, a lot of benefit. And so we did expand the availability of one of our options. You can see this on the slide here. It's the bottom left-hand corner, to be able to use the option of simply providing ground floor activation in many cases, and then to have screening on higher levels. And really, we're trying to balance a number of needs. But anyway, so we have done that. We have also removed a requirement that all the ramps had to be level in parking decks on the exterior of the decks along basically streets and parks and so forth, because that was not working necessarily for all sites from a design perspective. So that may be one of the bigger changes that we've made. We've also adjusted prescribed conditions for neighborhood commercial establishments. These are the commercial establishments that, particularly in our neighborhood 1 or our more traditional neighborhoods, maybe the older corner store. We don't have a lot of these in Charlotte. We do allow the construction of some new ones in our higher intensity neighborhoods. But for these older buildings that are used for commercial, we had added prescribed conditions for restaurant and bar. I'm sorry, we've added prescribed conditions also for restaurant, bar, and accessory drive-through, but that we are prohibiting outdoor entertainment as an accessory use in neighborhood 1 zoning because of the impacts that would have. There are still many places that the ordinance will allow that in our community. Just didn't feel that outdoor entertainment would be appropriate in our neighborhoods. We've also renamed something in the ordinance, which was drive-through facility to accessory drive-through. This is basically when you go to a drive-through, whether it be a bank or a pharmacy or fast food restaurant, this is really the window, the accessory drive-through window that supports that use. So if we go to the next slide, we found that there was confusion with the term drive-through facility. It wasn't really explaining to people that this is the accessory drive-through like you see on this visual here. And so we did change that name to provide greater clarity. It does not change the intent or the use definition or the zoning districts where this is allowed. We also in certain districts have said that an accessory drive-through will only be allowed. What we said previously is if it was located on the site when the ordinance went into effect on June 1st. And we realized there was some confusion, disagreement, lack of clarity on what do we mean by located. So we wanted to say located and in operation. If it had not been operating for 3 years, we didn't really consider that being located. Some others did. This limitation, though, doesn't apply in commercial and M&L zoning districts. And we also added a prescribed condition to try to clarify that for a restaurant and bar principal use to have an accessory drive-through, that there needed to be a minimum of 24 seats, indoor or outdoor. We thought that was pretty flexible, but we thought if you're below that, you really are not not have an accessory window that really is becoming your principal use. So we tried to clarify that as well, and that was an approach that was used in the previous zoning ordinance. We have also had a lot of discussion about sidewall heights for residential buildings. We have these in 2 places, and really what the sidewall is when you face a structure, it's the wall on the side. It's not your front wall, but you have 2 side walls. And so we clarified that is not increased by increasing the side setback. There'd been some disagreement over that. We also tried to clarify this approach because this is a new approach in Charlotte. And typically applies, by the way, to duplexes and triplexes, unless you're in the residential infill overlay, and then it applies to everything. But we also clarified if you're on a corner lot, for example, or if the lot next to you is vacant, which of the zoning district or which of the homes do you use? And that was not real clear. It's very clear that if you're using averaging, so you can go above 20 feet, which is the max. If the homes on either side of you have a sidewall of greater than 20, you can average. But what if you don't have a home next door, or you are on a corner? Which homes do you use? So we've tried to clarify that as well. Again, these are in the neighborhood 1 zoning district and also residential infill, and we've also adjusted the illustration in the ordinance to try to provide greater clarity. I believe this is our last slide, so thank you for bearing with me. We clarified what you do when there is a conflict between standards. We have endeavored not to have conflicts between standards in the UDO, but just in case something comes up, the more restrictive standard would apply, and we have put that in the ordinance so that that is clear for everyone. We have clarified and added a few general definitions in Article 2, which is where we have our general definitions. We have clarified the applicability of other primary frontages, which your frontage is really your street frontage. And many of our standards are based on your street frontage. We've clarified that when that street frontage is abutting a neighborhood one place type. We've added that lot standards do not apply to sublots. We had a lot of questions about that. We've added that multifamily stacked development can front on common open space. We have clarified the limitations on uses in structures and setback. We thought the term setback was pretty easy, but we've had some folks who have said, well, you're not really clear about that, so we should be able to put this in the setback. And we're like, no, in that case, in certain cases you cannot, and in some cases you can. The next thing is just the simplest to clean up. We changed the notation in the use matrix for multifamily stacked in N1F from X, which means allowed, to prescribed conditions, because we have moved prescribed conditions over. And we also are now allowing private recreation clubs to have electronic sign permissions. So trying to provide flexibility where appropriate or needed. And we thought that was a good thing that we could add to the ordinance. So just to let you guys know, while this is a one text amendment, it is quite frankly probably one of many. And that's what we found as we have spoken with peer cities, that for a few years after adopting something new like this, there is a text amendment phase to get everything working the best way that it can. So that's what we're obviously in the midst of doing. You've seen that we have text amendments already that we've done, and we'll have some more. We have a council referral on duplex and triplex dwellings in larger projects. There is a new North Carolina House Bill 488 that has will necessitate some changes in the ordinance. We'll have additional cleanup text amendment. We've had some issues from code enforcement. We're currently working on campus district uses because they're not very clear. We have learned. We found there are about 5 of us that understand how that was supposed to work. So we need to do something about that. We'll be looking at our conservation development standards. And as more things come up, we will continue to look at them as we hear from the community. As we look at these, we want to let you guys know how we're getting the word out. And specifically, we want to talk about what we've done for this case and let you know that our text amendments are classified either as technical or policy-based. And a policy-based would be something like that referral from council that has large policy implications, as opposed to the cleanup text amendments that really are making more technical changes. And so we have a number of items. Still, we think it's important for everyone to know what we're doing. We have a number of items for technical text amendments, like the session that we're on now. We post on our website, we publicize through social media, we send out information to mailing list and UDO website subscribers. We have council public hearing, and so we still endeavor to do quite a bit to get the word out on these and to get feedback from folks. Just real quickly, if you go into our charlotteudo.org website, you can go to UDO amendments, and then you can go to this amendment or any of the others that are posted and that are active, and then you will see a complete red line text amendment showing all the proposed changes for this text amendment. So what happens next is we are making, we will be making adjustments to the proposed text amendment. We will notify people who've signed up for these sessions, as well as our subscribers to the UDO website, of the adjustments that we're making. Again, at this point, we're looking at a November public hearing and a December council decision. And I believe that completes our slides. So I'm going to ask maybe Kevin and Alan if you could go through the questions we've gotten so far.
Thank you, Laura. This is Alan. I'll go to the first question we got from Dick Winters. Hi, Dick. Long time. Why the relatively short time periods for the affordability requirements of either 30 years or 15 years? Why are they not indefinite? And Laura, jump in, but what I'll start off by saying is that for affordable housing requirements, we lean on our neighborhood and housing and neighborhood services department, who administers the city's affordable housing programs, and that is their recommendation. These are not our numbers, but those that were recommended by Housing and Neighborhood Services. I don't, in an earlier career of mine, I did more work in affordable housing, and I don't know that I've ever seen an indefinite affordability period used for things like this. Laura, any other thoughts about that?
No, I think you've answered it well, Alan.
Okay. And then the next comment or question was from Brian Malenke. Sorry if I misspelled your last name. And I think Kevin has covered that answer in chat by directing Brian to where he can see the complete red line version of the proposed text amendment. And I think Brian was good with that answer. Doyle George says, clarify the term larger projects for duplexes and triplexes. And Laura, I'm going to let you take that one.
This came from council. They asked us to look at this. They did not clarify that, and we'll be working on, as we look at that text amendment, determining what larger is and going back to council to see, is this what you intended for larger? And we will have sessions on that text amendment as it moves forward.
And then there's a follow-up, I think, to that same issue, and that's from Brian again. What are the terms of the referral on the larger projects? And so maybe you've covered that.
Yeah, so that really is about what they've told us. There was discussion at the Transportation Planning and Development Committee meeting. So you can certainly go back and kind of hear their discussion, which is what I would recommend. You probably want to hear it directly, but you know, again, that the referral is pretty straightforward.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you've advised maybe going back and listening, do you happen to remember the date of that TPD committee meeting where they made that referral?
It has probably been about 3 months now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I did put you on the spot.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. And then the last comment that we have, or question that we have from Brian, does your revised definition of duplex on page 15-16 now discard the original two-family buildings without a party wall, but with an attached covered breezeway, which are entirely prevalent in lower income and historically minority neighborhoods?
So we have not seen that in Charlotte, and that has not traditionally been the way we have defined duplexes. That we would consider, frankly, to be two single-family homes. So they would have to be attached with a party wall, we believe, or stacked. That is truly what a duplex is meant in Charlotte.
Those are the comments and questions that we have seen in chat so far, but we are at 12:39, and so this meeting has scheduled for 1, so we can give you a bit more time if questions come to mind that you want to try to enter into chat now, or if not, as we covered earlier, we do have an email address, and we welcome your comments and questions on this or any other issues related to the UDO. We don't have time to cover everything today, but if you want to send an email, or if you think of something after this meeting is over, and again, Brian's got a follow-up. Does not think we should approve this without further research. Okay, so perhaps if you could maybe shoot us an email with what your thoughts are on that, or if you want to try to sneak those additional thoughts in the chat, that's kind of an open-ended statement that I'm not sure I know exactly what that further research would be.
Well, if I could, I would tap dance for a minute to give you guys some time, or we could play the Jeopardy song. But maybe we'll hang on for a few more minutes to see if anyone adds anything. And I see that Dick Winters has added, is there currently a task force working on revising or eliminating parking minimums? And there is not currently a task force working on revising or eliminating parking minimums. We know that parking, it continues to be an issue, and I think, frankly, from our perspective, a challenging one, because there are so many different perspectives on it in our community and even in our council. So we feel certain that we will be coming back and talking more with council and the community about parking, but we are just not at this point in time doing that. The parking distance, is that something that's part of our text amendment? The parking distance for single family versus, I'm not sure I understand what the question is. Angie, could you unmute maybe to clarify?
Sure. How are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Good, good. So yeah, you made reference to a 20-foot minimum distance with respect to, you said duplexes and triplexes. Is there a minimum distance for single family as well?
Right, and I think that the graphic may have been off, and I hope I didn't use that language. I believe it's 40% or 24 feet, whichever is less is the width of parking and driveway. There is not a limitation for single family, because historically we haven't seen that as an issue. And that's not to say that that is never a situation, but in most cases we are seeing lawns in the front. So we didn't want to overly limit single family and add a new standard, but we'd be glad to hear feedback from you guys on that as to whether we should.
Okay, because if I may add just one small thing again, because I know that there's in the historic district and working with zoning, and so I just wanted to clarify that as a single family versus as far as the not the width but the depth. the 20-foot marker.
The 20-foot depth applies in all situations.
It
for
does,
single-family
and it's,
and duplex and triplex.
it is 20 feet, even 20 foot in length, even for single family is the minimum driveway length. And there's a 10-foot minimum driveway width.
Got it. Okay. And that is also in chapter.
It
oh,
is,
chap-
yeah, it's in Article 19.6. 19.6, and it's right up there near A1, surface parking and parking lot locations for neighborhood 1 and neighborhood 2 zoning districts. And then you scroll down to Roman numeral 3, all dwellings, and that's where you'll find that.
Okay. Thank you. Because when you said just for duplexes and triplexes, it was a little bit confusing, but thank you.
Yeah, the percentage of the width of the lot applies to duplexes and triplexes.
Got it. Wonderful.
And it is on page 19-18 of the text amendment, of the red line text amendment.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, folks.
Certainly. Good to see you again.
Yeah, same here.
So not seeing anything else added to the chat. I think we're probably in a good place to close. Well, I say that, and Mr. George has added anything. There is not a maximum coverage for a lot related to a driveway, but what does impact that, well, a few things. And some of our stormwater regs have some impervious standards that could influence that. And we do, again, limit the width for duplexes and triplexes in front of the home. So that could also limit that as well. Question of when will we be able to access this recording? We will post it on our website, and I'm going to ask Kevin.
Yeah.
General time frame.
Thank you for that question, Joe. Usually I'm able to get these processed and posted pretty quick. I would just ask for a little bit of grace, patience, and understanding, and maybe give us a business day or two. Certainly, I anticipate that it should be posted on the Planning, Design, and Department YouTube channel by the end of the week, this week.
Thank you.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Again, we really appreciate you guys coming. And wait a second. No, you cannot cover the entire front of the lot with an impervious surface. I think we may in some cases have a little bit more restriction than before in our old zoning ordinance. So with that, we really appreciate you guys coming. If you want to send anyone our way to the 6 o'clock session, we will be back. And
I'll just add, Laura, that for the 6 o'clock session, it is a separate registration, which you can do right up until the last minute on our website. So if you want to come back or refer someone else to the 6 o'clock session, you need to register again for that.
yes, and the link for the additional questions after this call, I think we had that earlier in the presentation. Alan, can you read that out?
Sure. Or I can go back to that slide.
That slide.
And, it's here it is on screen. It's an email address, Charlotte UDO, all one word, doesn't matter on capitalization, Charlotte UDO at charlottenc.gov. I realized I was not sharing my screen.
We're not sharing, yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys so much.